Hey, what's up, everyone? Pleasure to meet everyone here. My name is Daniel. I'm from the Unlimit Crypto team. And yeah, I'll give you a lowdown of Unlimit, what we do, and everything related to that. So we'll start off. What is Unlimit? So Unlimit started in '09 as a payments company. So they do everything from card acquiring, payment methods. We have a banking as a service suite. So '09, when e-com and all these different things are blowing up, Unlimit came into the space, powering a lot of the payment rails for a lot of various conventional Web 2 companies. And over time, as they have built up a bunch of these payment methods, licenses across the world, they realized, hey, why don't we go into the crypto space and compete in the on and off ramp space? So that is the premise right there. So on the last note of what I just said, why? Why do they think, hey, we have all these licenses, why should we go into this space? So it's good to understand like the backdrop of like crypto on and off ramps, right? So originally we had centralized exchanges. You had your OKXs, the Coinbases. Those are really the first on and off ramps in the space. Over time, you had different companies pop up that allowed you to integrate on and off ramps into your own application. So over time, you have all of a sudden new companies such as Transact, MoonPay, Ramp, all these companies starting to pop out where they're allowing third-party integrations onto partner websites. And over time, you now have localized on and off ramps catering to very specific markets. So the players I just listed, they were across like the major markets, and then over time you had smaller players pop up, allowing on and off ramps in very niche markets like Brazil, Mexico, Africa, and etc. So Unlimit came into the space. They realized, hey, we have all the above. So we have the ability to allow users in Mexico to go to the local bodega and on-ramp in using like OXXO, which is like the most popular bodega in Mexico. We have banking rails across all the countries, so like SEPA in Europe, SPAY in Mexico, et cetera, and obviously we have cards, so card payments. So that is the premise of why they got into the space. So payments, right? I think it's important to understand like how does this work? Okay, yeah. Sorry. I think it's important to understand how payments work, to understand why we're valuable in the space and why things work as they should, right? So we'll start off the flow. So it starts off, you're the card holder, right? You use a card given by your bank, and the bank is the issuer, which banks are often called principal members, but we'll get into that later. Then the store is the merchant. They accept your card payment through a point-of-sale system. And the store usually has a banking relationship with an acquirer, which ensures they can accept card payments. And then you have the point-of-sale system, which connects to a processor. And the processor's role remains as the mediator that ensures a smooth conversation between the store, the network, and your bank. The processor then informs the acquirer about the transaction details. The acquirer facilitates the transaction by connecting with a network, example your Visas, and ask if the card is valid and has enough funds. Visa then speaks to the bank that issued your card. The bank, the issuer, checks if there's enough money and then sends back a message either approving or declining the transaction. And finally, the processor transmits the message back to the bank system. It's approved. The money eventually transfers from your bank to the store's bank. So that right there, I'm sure a lot of you guys have bought things, but when you swipe your card, that entire flow is what happens. That's what's going on in the background. So why are we different, right? So Unlimit is all of the above. We are the acquirer, we are the processor, we are a principal member, like a lot of the major banks in the world. So what happens because of that? Because of that, we're essentially able to avoid all of the extra fees that come with all the other on and off ramp players that actually just are wrapping other players. So you have the other on and off ramps in the space, they're not acquirers, they're using acquire. They use third-party processors, they use third-party acquirers, as I just said. So by the time you buy crypto using your card or X payment method, all of a sudden, massive fees get taken away. And the other players can't help it. That's just what they have to do because there's no other choice. They're essentially just wrapping other integrations into their stack. What we do, on the other hand, is we own the full stack. So essentially, we're not dictated by the requirements or the fees of other third parties. We dictate that ourselves. So that right there is the key differentiator between us and pretty much everyone else in the space. And ultimately, you know, I'm sure you guys saw like Stripe last week. They announced like crypto payments, right? And Stripe also has an on and off ramp. I think they created a couple of years ago. Didn't really explode as much as they wanted to, but this is essentially where the space is going, where you have these major institutions like Stripe, we're essentially coming in, and all the other ramps in this game who are just wrapping, it's essentially a race to the bottom. Who can offer the lowest fees, right? It's essentially, that's the game we're playing. Let me continue. So, yeah, so this is essentially the next generation. That everything being said, this is the next generation of essentially where things are going. Essentially being able to have one integration that connects you in to like the foundational base layer of the payment system. And you can essentially transact with the lowest in-class fees. Essentially, because we're not using third-party providers, there's no like FX spreads. So we're essentially creating the closest one-to-one relationship possible in the space when it comes to buying crypto or selling. So as I said, yeah, this is essentially the Gen 2, and then we're going into the next gen, which is essentially, there's no more room essentially for these players to take out huge fees and huge margins. Essentially, us and other players in the game, it's going into a position where people are going to be squeezed out. And the premise of this is that you have to own the rails, or else you end up getting owned or something. It's not as clever as I want it to be, but hey, you know. Like, okay. Essentially, all that being said, I know that I didn't really talk about the hackathon, but I think it's important to understand like why this matters and essentially how this space works. Yeah. So what does this mean? So essentially the premise of our hackathon is integrating account abstraction with our rails, right? So account abstraction really took hold like towards the end of last year, and I mean, as many of the cool things I've seen, there hasn't really been this major hitter of an account abstraction app or integrating account abstraction. Like, you know, you have your Coinbase, like Coinbase wallet, they're coming out with an account abstraction wallet. That's a lot of people looking forward towards. But the question is, like, that they're a major institution or a major company. Can you guys create something that can take hold in the marketplace? Essentially, that's the premise of this hackathon. So essentially, what is account abstraction, right? So it refers to the ability for a smart contract to send and verify transactions. So right now, conventionally, you have EOA wallets, which do not have the smart contract capability underneath them. But with these new smart contract wallets, you can essentially execute smart contracts within the scope of your actual wallet itself. So here's some other functionalities that with account abstraction that's possible. So like with account abstraction wallets, multiple transactions can be batched and executed together in a single transaction. And then this is important for ensuring atomicity. which is where a sequence of transactions either fully completes or fails entirely with no partial execution. So for example, let's say a user wants to approve spending of token A, swap token A for token B, deposit token B into a protocol. Well, so with a normal wallet, these would be 3 separate transactions. The problem is that you could approve, your approve could succeed, but the swap fails. Now the allowance is wrong. Or the swap succeeds, but the deposit fails. Now the funds are stuck in limbo. So with account abstraction wallets, transaction batching, it would send 3 transactions bundled in one. And the transaction would only be executed if all 3 actions succeed atomically. I can't even say it. I'm sorry. Atomically. There you go. I'm sorry. That was I traveled a lot to get here. So there's no chance for a partial execution during this. Yeah. So that's that. And you also have other things like, gas sponsoring, session keys that allow new functionalities to be taken place within the scope of these account abstraction wallets. You also have other things like social recovery, upgradable validation rules. So externally owned accounts have their own validation logic hard-coded into the blockchain protocol itself. For example, Ethereum has rules like transactions must have a valid ECDSA signature within the EOA's private key, nonces must be sequential, gas fees must be paid in ETH. So these rules can't be changed or customized as they're set in stone within the EOA itself. But in contrast, smart contract wallets can program their own custom validation logic via the smart contracts. For example, a smart contract wallet could have rules like, require 2FA to send transactions, support batching, or allow paying fees in other ERC20s instead of ETH itself. So you have other things like plugin extensibility, and I think this is probably one of the most interesting things when it comes to the smart contract wallets. Essentially, coding these plugins that are smart contracts within the scope of your wallet. So imagine right now you have to, you want to swap from A to B, you have to go to 1inch, Jupiter.ag, whatever you have to go to. But with this technology now, you can essentially create that mechanism within your actual wallet itself. You don't need to go to 1inch to connect your wallet and do the swap. You can essentially code that within the wallet itself to the point where you can say, hey, once ETH lands in this wallet, automatically swap to XYZ. You don't need to do anything, go to any other platform to do that. It can all happen within the scope of your wallet. So with that being said, that is the premise of essentially this hackathon, is using this technology, how do we democratize crypto for the masses, right? So if you want to go stake or do whatever action you want to do, a lot of you guys can do it. You've been in the space, you've experimented here and there. But if I'm some random regular person down the road, I'm not going to go on Uniswap and figure out how to LP my tokens and do these things, right? I want an easy way to do it. With smart contract wallets, you have that chance now. You can essentially say, hey, when ETH lands in my wallet, go to this protocol, stake. Where if ETH lands in my wallet, buy this meme coin or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things that can happen that were only accessible to people who were knowledgeable about the space that they couldn't do before now, or that they could do, but it was never accessible to the regular person. But with this, it's now accessible to everyone. So what does this mean? It means whatever you guys can imagine, really. Pretty much taking something that's really hard and complex for a regular person to understand. A regular person is not going to go to Uniswap's docs and figure out how to do X, Y, or Z, right? They're going to text their friend, and they're going to ask their friend how to do it. So that's really the premise of how far a regular person is willing to go. They're not willing to go that far. So how do we essentially take that and build around it? So for our hackathon, we actually have built out this account abstraction demo. We have our on-ramp and off-ramp demo in there. So we have all of our code needed to essentially integrate our on and off-ramps. We have our docs. We have a Telegram channel as well. It's in the ETHGlobal Sydney like events list where we're a provider. It's in one of the links, so you can actually go to that and join our Telegram, and ask us questions, figure out anything you need. And we have multiple GitHub repos. This is just one, but we have other ones as well that show you multiple demos of our entire stack and how it works end to end. And yeah, here's my Telegram, my Discord. As I said before, you can join the hackathon Discord or the hackathon Telegram as well, and we'll help you guys with anything you need. And yeah, that is the premise. Thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah, I think we have like 2 more minutes. I think. Yeah, you got a couple questions if anyone has any thoughts, ideas, or concerns. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned about the social recovery, right?
Yeah.
Has that been already implemented, or?
Yeah, so it's not within the scope of the demo,
Okay.
but yeah, you can definitely integrate that within there's multiple providers. Like the demo we use like ZeroDev. So there's multiple providers. ZeroDev is one of the bigger ones. Yeah, ZeroDev is a good one. There's multiple ones. I can send you a list within our Telegram if you join it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, but yeah, all of these are currently live and you can integrate however you want. Yeah. Yep.
Is there a rollout plan for doing Unlimit in New Zealand?
I'll get back to you. Yeah.
Just a reminder, can you repeat the question when they ask?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah. Yep.
So in a race to the bottom for fees, how do you compete with WorldPay and Stripe?
Yeah, so the question was, in a race to the bottom with fees, how do you compete with WorldPay and Stripe? We essentially are WorldPay and Stripe. We are an acquirer or a processor. We're essentially in the same niche as them.
But isn't their volume a lot bigger, and therefore they can negotiate with the merchant banks to have lower, I guess, pass-ons?
I mean, we compete in different jurisdictions. So we're a European, like this company's European. So we have rails across like Europe, APAC, LATAM. I mean, they do too, but I have to look deeper into WorldPay. But like, I know we're like one of the few, if not only, providers where you can go to like your local bodega in Mexico and on-ramp that way. So there's definitely like, yeah, for card acquiring and banking, sure, like there's some competition there, but when it comes to like localized APMs, which I talked about before, which is like the history of on and off ramps, where all of a sudden you have these like super niche localized providers, we essentially can do that as well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any plans to integrate Bitcoin Lightning payments?
Bitcoin Lightning payments. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man. I've seen the statistics of Bitcoin Lightning. It doesn't look that hot, but maybe. You look ready to kill me, man. Maybe though. We have a Bitcoin Lightning, so you could do that right now. Yeah. Sorry if I hurt your feelings, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the long way of saying a GMI?
I mean, dude, maybe.
It's a joke, go ahead.
I mean, dude, I'm not gonna say anything, but could maybe, Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and yeah, I hope you guys do some cool stuff. I appreciate it.